Hey everyone, it's Ken Pulse with you here. And in this video, I'm going to look at something that came up for one of my self-service Business Intelligence Academy students in our Ask Ken Anything sessions. And to put the question quite simply, it was, how do I get the values out of a timeline so that I can use them to update a report title dynamically? Now, this was cool. And I'm like, hey, cool, I've got a solution for this, and busted it out. And what actually floored me on this was the reactions that I got from my students of how amazing this was. I'm like, maybe I should do a video on this because maybe this can help some other people. So let's go take a look at the spreadsheet here. You can see we've got a nice little pivot table here. This is a data model backed pivot table, although you can play the same kind of trick if you're careful with a regular pivot table, just so you know. We have a timeline here that is connected to this pivot table. And if you see, I can go and select 3 months, it'll restate the pivot table. But what it's not doing, obviously, is updating our title on our report because, well, this isn't a formula. And even if it was, how could we get the value out of this? Now, there's multiple different ways you could do this. I'm going to show you my favorite ones, easy ones. What I like to do here is I like to go and create an explicit measure because I'm a big fan of explicit measures when we're working with Power Pivot. In a regular pivot table, you could do this by adding fields and changing aggregations if you want, if you can do it the way you need. So I'm going to cheat on this one a little bit. I'm going to go to my monkey tools. You can get this for free. And this is one of the features that actually does show up here. And we're going to go build a basic explicit measure because I just don't really feel like coding anything right now. So this is going to pop open our little form here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and pick off from my calendar table. I am going to look for the date field and I'm going to create a measure for the last date. And I'm just going to go and call this one, I don't know, selected date or something like that. Actually, I guess we'll call it last selected date. That's a little bit better. I'm not going to store this on calendar. I'm actually going to store this on sales just because I like to try and group my measures in those areas. And you can see that the format of the DAX measure we're getting, or rather the formula itself, is really simple. It's just last date of calendar date. Okay, nothing super crazy here. So we're going to go create that and it'll add it to my pivot table. That's fine. I'm going to move that in a little bit later. I'm also going to go to my calendar table here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the month field and I'm going to grab a count of that one. And we're going to grab a distinct count. So if you haven't seen monkey tools before here, this is the, let's go, number of months. This is just an easy, no code way to go and write your DAX measures. If you know how to write them yourself, no big deal. You can do that, of course. But I love simple and easy in this particular case. So there we go. We're going to grab our number of months. It's going to be the distinct count of the calendar month. And if we go and hit create measure on this one here, it also adds this to the pivot table. We're going to go and say, okay, close that. And we can see now that our last selected date is September 30th. If I go to July, we've got 1 month. It's the last date there. We can move it around. We can grab our different periods. Okay, so nice and simple. We've got the bones we need in order to drive what we're working with. But the reality is, I don't really want these on this pivot table. I mean, I could hide the columns, but that's not really slick. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and say, let's go and take these off of this pivot table. But what we are going to do is we're going to come over here for right now. And I'm going to go and insert a new pivot table against the data model. And again, I'm just using monkey tools to do this. You can do all of this through regular commands in your Excel. I'll just add this right here. And I'm going to go to my sales table and find my measures. We're going to grab number of months and we're going to grab our last selected date. Now, what we'll notice here, these things are not in sync. So we need to hook this up so that they are. Before you do this, what I highly recommend is when you click on your pivot table, you'll be taken to the Pivot Table Analyze tab, and on the left-hand side, there is a name. It's a good idea before you start trying to do what I'm about to do here to give these good names. So I'm going to go and call this one something like PT Summary. And also, I'm going to go back to my other pivot table here, and I'm just going to rename this one. I'm going to call this one PT Detail. Okay, so we've got 2 pivot tables. There's no spaces that are allowed in these names. You can use underscores if you want. But at this point, the reason I do that is because it makes it really easy to do this. I'm going to grab our timeline. This also works for slicers. Go to timeline and find report connections. Again, there's also a report connections on a slicer tab if you need to do this. You'll notice that this is linked to the PT detail pivot table. This is why we named them. So it's easy to see which one's what. We can also link this to PT summary. So now this is giving us our 4 months ending August 31st. If I go and grab these ones, this is the 3 months ending October 31st. If I go and drop that down, it's 12 for these particular periods here. So everything is working nicely here. All I need to do at this point is update this equals quote. We're going to go, instead of the X months, let's put in a quote here and we'll say and we'll just grab this value from the pivot table and let's get rid of that little X. And then for the months ended, we can actually go and say quotes. We'll say and then we'll put in our text function. We'll grab the value here. And now we're going to go and actually, let me just go and break this onto a couple of lines here so that we can actually see what's going on here. So I'm just going to go Alt Enter. There we go. Make this a little bit taller so we can see what's going on. There we go. It's a little easier to read maybe. So maybe I'll even put another one right here too. Alt Enter. There we go. All right. Alt Enter to do your line break so we can see what's going on in these. And so the date format that we need on this one here, I'm going to go MMM, DD, comma, YYYY. I'll get the cursor out of the way in just a second here. Okay, so MMM, so 3 M's, DD for a 2-digit date, YYYY for a 4-digit year. And at this point, when I now go and hit enter on this one, you can see that it is telling me it is for the 12 months ended December 31st, 2019. So at this point now, I can actually go back and say, cool, let's go and grab just our 3 months here. And away we go. We've got our 3 months for October 2019 as well, or our 1 month for July 2019. There you go. So this is kind of a neat little trick here. You just have to be a little bit careful with the number of months that you're actually playing with here. If you're working across multiple years, it would be better to count your month end column instead of just month names, okay? Because obviously month names are going to repeat over an individual period, but the last date formula works really, really well for this. So keep in mind the context of what you're actually presenting for your data to make sure that you get the right numbers. The very last thing I would do with this, I'm going to grab this, grab my pivot table, Control X to cut, we'll place it over here, put the timeline back on top of it. And now nobody needs to know that this is being driven by formulas in order to make this all work. So there you go. It's a nice little tip on how to actually be able to extract values from slicers or timelines using a second pivot table. Again, there's other different ways that you can actually do this job, but this is one of my favorites because it makes it super easy to debug. If I see that things are wrong, I just move the timeline out of the way. I can actually check what's going on to go back and tweak my formulas to make sure they're working for what I needed rather than what I originally wrote. So there you go. Hopefully you find that useful.